many here has their gun license?
You let it expire.
You let it expire. Right. How many have the LTC? How many people have shot within the last month? When you go to the range, what do you mostly shoot? Handgun, rifle?
Handgun, both, yeah, a little bit of both.
A little bit of both? Okay. Tonight we're going to start off with basic safety. Everybody here already has their license or had a license. So everybody here should know the basic safety rules, but it's never a bad thing to go over them again and keep them ingrained in your head. It's a no-brainer. Always point the gun in a safe direction. Trigger guard down there.
All right. Oh, all their German magazines.
All right, for the purpose of this, I just had to verify if this gun is empty. Pistol, safe direction, finger, side of the slide. Unless you're actually ready to pull that trigger, your finger should be on the side of that slide. 99% of all your holsters now, this is also empty. Emptied it out for the purpose of this, but this is also an empty gun. Just about all of your holsters have some type of retention on the side, and if they don't, there's always a groove right where your guns go in. So when I go to draw this and I pull it up, that finger just naturally slides in that groove, and my hand comes up and it's already right there on the side of my slide. Treat every gun like it's loaded, and for the purpose of this, I'm just going to say gun. I'm not going to say handgun, I'm not going to say firearm, I'm not going to say rifle, pistol. So for the most part, I'm probably just going to throw out gun. But keep in a safe direction. You know, we're safe, down is safe. If you're at the range, down is safe. I'm not a big fan, but a lot of people, that's safe. As far as I'm concerned, if it goes off and it comes, it's got to come down. But a lot of people, so just ready aim, you know, keep it down there, and at all times, keep the booger hook off the thunder stick. Know what you're shooting at. When you go out there, when you go out to the range, a lot of people will just go to the range and be like, hey, let's start shooting. Especially if it's early, just walk the area that you're going to shoot at. If you're at a pistol range, just walk general area. Make sure that there's nothing and nobody behind the area that you're shooting at. I mean, some of these ranges, I mean, Hardwick, 300 yards. I mean, you're not going to go all the way down, but there's a berm and a backstop. You can clearly see your lanes as to whether or not there's anything or any obstruction or anything that's in your way. If you're making your own range, or if you're just out there in the woods, you know, try and find yourself or make yourself a good backstop to stop penetration. I've got a little range myself, and it is logs about this big around. They go up 16 feet high, they're 30 feet long, and then behind that is all backfilled with loom. Nothing is getting through there. I don't care if you're shooting a 50 cal. It's not going to go through that and be in yonder somewhere. So always know what you're shooting at, know what the target is that you're shooting at, make sure it's safe to shoot at that target, and make sure you have a viable backstop that's going to stop any penetration from the weapons that you're shooting. Be familiar with your gun. John, obviously that was the setup. You know, you've never handled this gun before.
I haven't.
You know, if you own a weapon, you know, practice with it. Dry fire with it. You know, do the mirror drills. Bring it up. Make sure you know where your mag releases are. Make sure you know where your safeties are. Make sure you know where your slide releases are. Make sure you need to know whether it's a double action or a single action, you know? Can you cock that, you know, can you cock it back, you know, and can you let it release forward? So know your weapons, you know? For the most part tonight, I brought AR platforms. One is in 223, the other is in 22. The reason I brought these two is because they have the military style sights on them. All of my others either have pop-ups or red dots on them. So for the sake of this class, I wanted to go with the regular military style sighting with the round peephole in the back and the post in the front. Do not shoot at hard surfaces. That includes water. Anybody ever shot straight into water? Sometimes that bullet can ricochet off of there. Sometimes it'll just go down and it'll come right back up in a different spot. So you never shoot, I mean, obviously you're not going to shoot down at ice and things like that. It's just pretty much common sense. You know, if you're going to shoot at a hard target, especially like steel plates, you know, they should be at an angle canted down so that they're canted a little bit, so when the lead does hit them, it goes straight back down into the ground. You don't want it so that it's on an elevation the opposite way. That ricochet will then go up into yonder and who knows where it's going to go. So again, if you're shooting steel plates, shooting anything hard, make sure that you know what angles that they're at, and make sure you know whether or not they can handle the caliber of weapon that you're shooting. I know I set out some steel plates and I shoot all day long at that thing with the AK-47 and go out there and you know you see little paint chip marks all over it and it's beautiful, and then I'll shoot the AR at it and I'll be like, Jesus, I can't hit the broadside of a barn. AR just goes right through. You know your weapon, know your ammunition, and know, you know, I'm not going to be one that's going to, you know, well, this one shoots 2,240 foot-pounds per second, and this one's only 18.75. You know, just know your platform, know your weapon, know the ammunition that you're using. Know that if you're using an ammunition that's a hollow point, it's most likely going to mushroom out, it's going to frag out, and it's going to be, but if you're going to use a full metal jacket, you know, you're going to get more penetration with that, and it's just going to go right through something. So again, not only know your weapon, but know your backdrop, know your ammunition. Don't rely on the safeties. And that's why I always say keep your finger to the side. You know, everybody know the press check. You know, you can just pull it back a little bit, see if there's actually anything in your weapon. It's always good to do that. When I just took the defensive AR class with Jack, he didn't allow you to do a press check because you better know that there's already one in there. And the whole time, he's like, if you pull that trigger and I hear a click, you're running laps. And you know, this is a class we paid money for. And thankfully, there were two people, because we were on buddy teams, and one guy went click, the first drill, who had just been through his class 2 weeks prior, and went through the 1.0 and came back for the 1.5, and he was the only one that pulled and had a click. So him and his buddy had to go and do laps. But it's nice to have little things like that. So don't rely on your safety mechanisms. Rely on yourself. Always treat your gun as if it's loaded. This one here, this is an NRA. Only load your gun when you need to. Well, if you're carrying your gun for personal protection, then the time you need to is the time you strap it on in the morning. For the most part, this, they're talking about when you go into the range, you know, don't show up at the range with, you know, 50, 30 round magazines, fully loaded, one in the gun, you know, walking out with a box, and you gotta, you know, load them when you need to. Make sure you use the right ammo. A lot of people will, especially during the frenzy a couple of years ago, they would buy any AR they could get their hands on because I better get one now, otherwise I'm never going to get one, and that was the mentality at the time. So a lot of people were buying like a Smith & Wesson Sport or anything that they could get their hands on, and they were buying 223 AR platforms. Now, that's fine, as long as you have 223 ammunition. A lot of people would then go out and they would buy 5.56 ammunition, which for the most part doesn't always work in the 223. It has to do with the feed, and it has to do with the ramps that are in there. But 223 will shoot in a 5.56. So know what your platform is. Know that if you have a 5.56, you can go out, you can buy any of the commercial 5.56 or 223 ammo out there. If your weapon system is a 223, buy 223 ammunition. Don't buy 5.56, because when you go to need it, you're not going to be able to use it. And pay attention. I mean, it's the #1 thing. I mean, everybody needs to go out, have a good time, get better, become more proficient. You know, I know Craig, when he goes out, he works on speed. He's working on a lot of speed drills. Being in a law enforcement field, he needs that speed. Me, I'm not so much concerned about speed as I'm concerned about, can I hit that first shot on target? That, to me, is where I'd rather place my emphasis when I go training. So tailor your training to what your needs are. You know, if you're law enforcement, you're gonna wanna learn, you know, work on smooth draw, you're gonna work on your trigger pull, you're also gonna work on speed. The regular guys like me in here, you know, we wanna be able to put lead on target. I'm not as concerned if I can put 5 rounds in 4 seconds on target. I'm more concerned, can I put 5 rounds in 10 to 15 seconds, right where I want them. And again, tailor-make your training based on what your needs are. And if you can't hit the broadside of a barn, don't try for speed. Learn how to shoot first. Coming from military backgrounds, and I'm an old guy, so I was in the military a long time ago. But when I was in the military, I never shot handguns, never, not once. We shot the AR platform, we shot the 203s, we shot the M60s, we shot the Mont Deuces, never shot a handgun the whole time I was in the military. And when I came out, and I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna go and buy a handgun. And the first time I went to the range, I was just amazed that, I mean, I couldn't even hit a target like that from 20, 25 feet away. And I was just dumbstruck. How can I be so good with a rifle and so horrible? It's a different concept, you know? It's with the rifle, it's all about sight picture. And with the handgun, it's more about front sight rather than perfect sight picture. And it took me a long time. I told Steve, and I didn't find it, but I've got a video that was put out by Ops Gear on how to shoot a pistol. And I watched that video like 6 times, and I was just amazed. Wow, there's so much difference between a handgun and a rifle as far as shooting goes. And once I started hitting paper, everything was pulling left and down. And I couldn't figure it out. Went back and watched the video, and they said it's a common thing for men when they first start to shoot, because we over grip, and when you over grip, it's your pinky finger that's applying the pressure. So when you go and pull the trigger, everything's going down and left. So for a while, I was shooting with my pinkies out. I looked like, you know, one of those teetotalers, you know, but I used to shoot pinkies out for a while until I trained myself not to grip so tight with my grip. But again, it's practice, it's learning. I never went and took any formal classes on handgun shooting. I find myself to be very proficient. I did hit that dime at, what, 15, 20 feet, hanging from a piece of tape, put a dime out there, and with this little Walther, one shot, bang! Nailed the dime, bent it in half. Well, I started with a nickel, and then I hit the dime. But both of them. All right, for the most part, there's not any questions. We'll go to the start the basics of rifle marksmanship. And I'm not going to go verbatim and word for word and go through all of this stuff. Again, know your audience. For the most part, this audience here, everybody's shot. Even the one who doesn't have a license, I know is in the military, and you have to qualify at least once a year still, do it?
I do. I don't need a license to qualify when you.
Exactly. Once you have that little military ID, you're all good. You're good. All right, the 4 key fundamentals. We just went through, know your weapon system, and you know, the guy who was giving the class when he was packing all his bags today didn't put a magazine in this one, so this one here, we know it's empty. We don't have to check the mag on that one. But this is Smith & Wesson M&P 22. It's a 22. I like it because it has all of the same exact features as your AR. You're gonna hear a lot of us, we're gonna harp on the AR. We're, you know, AR. They're probably the most plentiful rifle that's out there right now. And chances are, if you don't have a weapon, if we're talking, you know, grid down or shit hit the fan, chances are, if you come across a weapon, it's going to be an AR platform, you know. And if it's not, it's probably going to be a Ruger 1022 or an AK-47. You just look at the statistics of what everybody has bought over the last 10, 15 years. So for the most part, if you're getting a high-powered rifle, it's probably going to be an AR platform. So it behooves you to know the basics of the AR. Because if you don't have a rifle, chances are you're going to at least come across one of these if you go to any training or anywhere, because the ammunition is still relatively cheap. The 22 obviously is a lot cheaper than the 223 if you can find it. I just did happen to find Walmart in Leicester this week. It had the 100-round packs of Stinger 22 for $7.99. It wasn't a bad deal. It's the first time I've seen it in a long time in a Walmart. But 4 fundamentals, you know, steady position, you know, your feet. You want your feet to be roughly shoulder width apart, you know, knees slightly bent a little bit, you know, get in a good position. How many people are right-handed in here that shoot rifle right-handed? Who's a lefty? Me and you? I train myself to shoot either side, but if I'm going for long distance accuracy, it's always the left. It's my dominant eye. I'm not going to go through tonight because everybody know what their dominant eye is. Has everybody done, you know, done the little charts and everything to figure that out? I shot right-handed when I first joined the military. I shot right-handed probably all through boot camp, and was qualifying, but I wasn't shooting lights out. And we did the eye test, and you're like, well, no wonder you can't shoot, Dupre. You're left eye dominant, we got to switch you over. So switched over, and been good ever since. But when I was a kid, I used to always just, you know, pick up the 22 and just shoot right-handed, because everybody I saw shot right-handed. And I did everything else on right-hand dominant. So everything I've done in my whole life has been with my right hand. But left eye dominant, so I learned how to shoot left, and especially now with the new, you know, they're not really new, but with red dots, where you keep your eyes open, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter, and you should get comfortable shooting from both sides. We're not doing this, but if we were doing, you know, patrolling, and we were in a line, Christina, you know, from the military, you know, first guy, he's right-handed, and the second guy, this is facing to the other side. So you stagger it both ways. So it just behooves you to be able to shoot from either side, because it would suck if you're over here and then something happens and you have to turn and make the move. So at least be proficient from both sides. Learn how to use all of your safeties, your mag releases, your bolt catch. Learn how to use everything with both hands. Because again, with the red dot, if you get a red dot on here, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You just want to get your proper positioning, which would get you into, you know, firm position right in here. You want your pistol grip in the webbing of your hand. Again, finger outside the trigger well. You want this to be, if you ever read anything of long distance shooters, snipers and such, the least amount of your body that actually touches the weapon. You'll see snipers when they're doing long distance shooting. This is the only thing. Everything else is resting on either a sandbag or some kind of emplacement, and they'll usually put pad or socks in between, so they're breathing. Can't even move the weapon system. So basically, the only thing that's touching is their finger going to the trigger, and that's about it. But you want a nice tight fit right into your shoulder pad. The AR is not a killer platform. You could shoot hundreds and thousands of rounds a day, and it's not going to make you sore like you were shooting a 308. So you want it tucked in nice and tight. You don't want it loose. Loose, it's going to go all over. You're never going to get the same sight picture. So find where it's comfortable for you, and from there, you want to go cheek weld. You want your cheek to it, and it'll become second nature to you. If you use it enough times, you go to the range, even if you don't shoot. I just watched a video of a girl this week who's a long distance shooter, and she said ammunition costs were killing her because she was firing off between 500 to 1,000 rounds a day. And she said if her sponsors were providing her with all that, then it was coming out of her own pocket. Excuse me. So what she said was she would fire one round, and then she would eject it, and she would fire 4 more empty, just to make sure her cheek weld, her buttstock placement, her hands, her sight picture, and without actually firing the rounds, and you can just pull that trigger, and you can see if you stay on your sight picture that way. You know, once you fire, you always come back to it, but without an actual round in there. You just come right up, sight picture, squeeze that trigger, and stay on target. If you're only shooting 1 round at a time, stay on target. You should be able to see through that sight, unless you have bad eyes, but you should be able to see through that sight roughly where your round went. So fundamentally, everything that we're going to talk about has to do with practice. You need to get out there, and you don't have to be at a range. I mean, you can do this in your basement. Just set something up as far away as you can get it, and if you can't get a farther distance, then use a small target. You know, at 25 feet in your basement, you know, use a shotgun shell. Once you're pretty confident that you're staying on target, then move it down to like a 45. You know, put a 22 out there. Just get it on there, and it's just to continue to practice it. Because like everything else, shooting is muscle memory. You know, it's when this comes up, it goes to the same spot every single time. It goes there every single time because that's where you pull it, and that's where you put it. And the more you practice that, the more it's not gonna, you're not gonna get it and then be like, no, it's, you know, it needs to be right there. You know, it's just gonna be second nature. It's just gonna come up and it's just gonna be right where you want it to be. So again, you don't have to spend hundreds of dollars a year to go out and practice. You just need to practice with what you have. Dry firing if you're nervous about it, you know, you can pull your firing pin. You know, 22s, they say, are more prevalent to not wanting to dry fire them. But it's a great training tool, just in your own house. You don't have to go out. You know, it's 40 degrees last weekend. I'm not going to the range. But if I'm downstairs, you know, clean a few weapons, then I'll be like, practice my sight picture, you know. If you have weapon systems that have red dots on them, then obviously you want to check those. Make sure your batteries are up, make sure your batteries are good. And when you take it to the range, always bring spares with you. Again, empty weapon system. Don't be gentle. Don't be gentle when you're inserting your magazines, you know. see people who don't want to scratch anything, you know. Get them in there, you know. Slam. You want to make sure you both see, you know, so don't be gentle. These are, to me, they're tools. They're not, you know, my playthings. It's not like a 66 Corvette that I'm not going to take out and drive. This is a tool, you know. When I go and throw myself prone in training, I'm not worried about getting scratches. I'm not worried about nicking anything up. You know, I am worried about, you know, throwing my sights off, or I am worried about, you know, cracking the lens on one of my red dots or something. But for the most part, scratches, nicks, dings, they're not going to hurt your weapon. You know, you get, I guess that could be considered like a badge of honor. You know, you get a few scratches and stuff on there. You know, but just basic. This is pretty much a basic AR. I personally like these skeleton buttstocks. For one, we're in Massachusetts, so you're not allowed to have collapsibles. So for me, rather than the old-fashioned A2, A1 style plastic buttstock that if I have to slam something is going to shatter on me, I'd rather go with this full aluminum model. Gives you a nice cheek weld on the pad, and they're roughly, I want to say, if you know, if you're building your own AR, the A1 stock is probably 30, 35 bucks. This is like 52. So you're not giving away a ton in, you know, well, it's, you know, it's an extra $100, so I could go and, you know, I don't do it because I make it look fancy. I do it because it's, to me, it's more practical. It's more practical that if I have to use this for other than firing, I like something nice and heavy on the end, and it's lightweight enough. This particular model, I got this one in trade, so I kept it, but this has just a Surefire front foregrip with the flashlight on it, and somewhere on here, the laser to me on a rifle is, I don't think I'd ever use one. But flashlight is definitely something nice to have. This has pulse, where you can just squeeze it on and off, or it has full time. So you can, we're not here to actually talk about that. When you get into firing position, back in the day when I was a pup, and we get into a firing position, it was always left leg, right leg, depending on how your shooting style is, to give you that proper balance. But nowadays, everything is prone, down, feet out, wide, however wide you want them. To me, how wide you want them depends on what cover you have. If you have a lot of cover, you hide behind a stone wall or something like that. If you want it nice and wide, go for it. If you're hiding behind a little tree, you're probably going to want to be as tight and close as you want. But keep them down. Another reason for that is keep your feet up like that. Somebody running by, snap your ankle. So better off to have them out straight. Gives you better balance. Your shooting elbow is important. That's, again, you're going to get that proper seat, and your elbow is just going to go where you want it. A lot of guys like it tucked in. Again, when I tucked it in, what happened? I elevated a good 6-8 inches. If I come down, if you have a supported rest, lower the better. One of the problems, a lot of people, you've got a 30-round magazine on there, you can't go too low. A lot of guys would go to the side, depending on, again, your situation, but for the most part, we're not in the situation where we have to worry about being below these two of those sandbags. So left elbow in, and then if you just want to rest it in your hand, some people won't even have that hand on there, or some people will put their hand to the side. Again, it's going to be all personal preference. It's going to depend on where you are, but you don't want to. I like to put it underneath, just because I like to have that
security of knowing that it's right there. And again, a lot of this is just personal preference. A lot of it is getting out there, practicing it, using the weapon systems that you have, becoming comfortable with them, and then how many people, when they go to the range, shoot prone? Most people don't. Most people either be standing up or they're being in the kneeling position. But not a lot of people go prone. So it's another thing to do when you go to the range. You know, practice all three positions. You know, unsupported, standing, and you know, you're prone. You want to go up to your knees. Again, you could tuck your elbow in and support it on your knee. A lot of people be unsupported. You don't have as much control. But if you get down, again, you get down a little lower, supporting it on that knee. You know, and then you come back up to your firing position. Again, it's personal preference. You want a foot forward. You're not going to be back. It's going to be a foot forward. And with that foot forward, again, you want to tuck this in as tight as you can because it's going to provide you with that fulcrum. That'll hold that weapons platform up there. And again, it's going to go up. It's going to be that perfect butt. A lot of guys, at least in the training that we did, ready position, you know, we pretty much always had it tucked in right here so that you just had to slide it right up and be in ready. A lot of guys like to carry it over the top so that they can come down on it. So again, it's getting out there, it's finding what works best for you. A lot of people just go to the range. They just don't really have any style or any set way. You know, when I go this week, I'm shooting, my elbow's out, you know. Next week I come, my elbow's in, I'm holding it closer, I'm holding it on here, I'm holding it out farther. I mean, get that one system that works for you and continue to practice that platform with that style. Any questions so far? No? Good. All right. Why don't we get a couple people up here?
Oh.
So what's the two things that we didn't talk about for rifle shoot so far? Breathing.
Oh, my God.
Breathing. You know, you don't want to just sit there. Pull the trigger. You either want to inhale in and hold it, pull the trigger, or exhale, pull the trigger. You want the least amount of body movements. And if you're breathing, and we found it out the hard way at the AI training, we started 50, and we'd shoot 3 times standing, 3 times kneeling, 3 times prone, get up, run, and fire 5 rounds for 20 yards. And then when you get up to the 30-yard line, fire 5 standing, 5 kneeling, 5 sitting down, and then you run again until you get to 10 feet. And at 10 feet, we just let the weapons drop, and we'd switch over to our handgun and go from there. So those are all drills that when we go out there, that we can play with and practice with and get people, but breathing is vitally important.
Did you notice it changed a lot, like after running? You know,
Oh,
people start
absolutely.
breathing heavier.
Absolutely.
And
And it's, I mean, if you've never shot on the run,
stuff.
it's the whole time you're running. I mean, I'm not a light guy, so, you know, when I hit. And when you're shooting and your gun's going up and down like this, and I mean, 3 out of 5 were going in the target, and the other 2 were off
Yeah, I don't know
the
if I
silhouette.
heard anything, right?
Running is more difficult to shoot on the run. Again, that's something that you have to practice a lot, to know your body, to know what's the best method for you, you know, rather than just doing a flat out run where you're all over the place. You know, you want to get it so that it's a coordinated run, firing on that run. But breathing, and we didn't talk trigger control. Trigger control, vitally important. You want it to be right in the center of that tab, of your first pad.
If you have it on the end, you have a tendency to pull it. If you have it too far in there, you've got no control. You want to have it just right in the middle of that first pad. And that's going to give you your best trigger control. And when you actually pull that trigger, let it be a surprise every single time. If you anticipate it's going to go off now, you're going to be all over the place. Just let it surprise you. Nice, easy, boom. Just every time. All right, for those viewers at home that might have missed this, we went over the 10 principles of safety with your firearm, keeping it safe distance. Pull the hook off the thumbstick. Don't be running around. Look at me. Keep it off there until you're ready. Until you're ready to pull the trigger. That's when it goes in, not before. Then basically for marksmanship, because we did not have an audience here tonight who were complete novices or had zero knowledge of shooting and the fundamentals of it, it was brief. It was a recap. We'll be doing a lot more of these. Hopefully we'll get Steve involved. We're definitely going to get Bert involved because they've got a lot more experience than I do. And it would be nice to bring some of that different experiences. If you're watching this, we'd like to get John Heenan to come in to do some long-range shooting for us. Other than that, thank you very much.